I have 4 days to complete a competition level paint job on a classic miniature. Wish me luck. Welcome back to Anvil Doom Miniatures. My name is Dietz, and if you saw last week's video, you'd know that I'm in the nightmare realm right now. It's that beautiful time of year where the Olden Demon painting competition is among us, and I managed to finish off my 40k entry, and now I'm moving on to my fantasy entry, and I haven't left myself much time. I don't know what happened. I only have around 4.5 days kind of left to get this miniature completed. Now, I believe miniature selection in a painting competition is just as important as the paint job. So for this week, I'm choosing something very, very special. I received this sealed WarhammerQuest Dwarf Slayer sculpted by Ali Morrison for my birthday last year from my mum. Thanks, Mum. And it truly is one of my favorite classic dwarf sculpts. But that's enough chewing the fat because I don't have much time, so let's get this box opened up and get started. One thing I love about getting minis in their original packaging is the chance to relive those experiences I never really had when I was younger. It's weird and pretty funny to get this feeling of excitement just from opening a box with a little toy inside. Now, the packaging alone for this Slayer is beautifully done, and you don't get many hand illustrated box art for a single miniature these days, and it's getting me really inspired and kind of helping me decide on which colors I want to choose even before I start painting. Now, the box comes with the Troll Slayer in his blister, a little manual full of background information and stats, these awesome hard cardboard cards with character info, and these cool little tokens. Everything about this just screams 90s Games Workshop, so I know this Dwarf Slayer will be the perfect selection for Olden Demon. As I keep saying, we don't have much time, so let's dive straight into the painting. And what I've kind of done is I've kind of divided up my time between the 4 days so I don't really burn out and I can paint to the best of my ability. I do find when I paint, and if I'm pushing myself too hard sometimes, I get a little bit sloppy. So for day one, I'm going to focus on prepping the model, painting the skin, and painting his little Daisy Duke pants. Today I'm trying something a little different, and I'm going to mix in some rat skin flesh to my Cadian flesh for my base color. I'm doing this to lay a really rich foundation to build off and to highlight up from. These two colors mixed together are just rich enough to give my dwarf a bit of a reddish complexion. For my highlights, I slowly place these in key areas and build up to lighter colors. I want to give him some real character and a bit of age, so I carefully place wrinkles around his eyes and forehead using a really skinny brush. And I also use my brightest highlights for this. The more I paint miniatures, the better I get at adding little details like this, and minis start to feel a bit more like blank canvases. So if you're struggling, don't give up, just keep practicing and it'll eventually click. Moving on to the pants, and I couldn't go past giving this guy some iconic Slayer blue and white striped dacks. I'll tackle the white first, and I'm lucky to have some pretty helpful mates in the hobby, and I was given this tip by Whiskey and Wizards over on Instagram. First, I hit the pants with a coat of extremely light grey all over, and then I watered down some Fenrisian grey with some contrast medium. I used a lot of medium for this. Then I slapped a few coats on the pants, making sure it pulls in the recesses. Then I do the same thing with some rust grey and contrast medium, and then it's time to highlight with some light grey and white. For the stripes, I draw in evenly placed lines with a mix of ultramarine blue and Teclis blue, and then fill them in. And then it's just time to highlight up with Teclis blue, Lothern blue, and then mix in some blue horror to the Lothern blue. I apply the brighter highlights to the folds in the pants so it looks like they are catching a bit of light and have some movement. If I were to keep them one color and then just do an edge highlight, it wouldn't give them any dimension. Now we're heading towards the end of day one, and I've got a little bit of gas left in the tank, so what I'm going to do is just put the base coats down for the hair. Because I didn't have too many mistakes and everything was running pretty smoothly, I actually started to enjoy the process a little bit more at this point as well. But anyway, it's time to move into day two and paint this portly fellow's raging Ranger hair, and also to get some base coats down on it. But before we get into that, consider hitting the like or the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Painting for competitions is a relatively new experience for me, and is actually pretty daunting. It's a hard thing to put yourself out there and compare your work to other highly talented painters, but what I've learned is that putting myself in this situation really pushes me to learn new things and to advance as a painter. I'm kind of forced to improve, if that makes sense. Each painted stroke on the model counts, each color is important, the model needs to have a sense of grandness or importance to it. It's a lot of pressure to take on, but if you commit to it, it pays off even if you don't win. Now, it may be a little late to enter this year's Olden Demon, but I highly encourage you to enter next year. You won't regret it. Time to highlight the hair, and I had no idea on how to make an orange that would be suitable for a Slayer, so I'm just going to wing this recipe. I start highlighting with a mix of 3 parts Troll Slayer orange to 1 part corn red, and I hit each strand of hair, and this took me ages. The way they used to sculpt hair back in the day makes painting it really hard because each strand is like 1 millimeter in thickness. I then highlight again with Troll Slayer orange and mix in some Uriel yellow. And then it's pure Uriel yellow, just to points of interest like the tips and the ends of the hair. I was really happy with how this turned out. It was looking really fiery and just the way I wanted it. Time was definitely on my side, so I hit up the True Metallics with a wash of Reikland Flesh for the gold and also some Nuln Oil for the silver. Next, I want to give this miniature some interesting details so it kind of stands out from the pack. And to do this, I'm going to give the fancy dragon engraving on the axe a green stone look, kind of like the Punamu stone that can be found in New Zealand. I use a mix of dark green and warpstone glow as my base and then douse it with some Nuln Oil. After that, I go back over with some dark green and warpstone glow, then some pure warpstone glow and moot green, and then moot green and white just to the tips of some areas. Moving into day 3, and it's looking pretty good so far, but I'm going to start painting the true metallic metals, and I was kind of dreading this because true metallic metals for me are always up and down. I feel like I paint them really well sometimes, and I can also paint them pretty poorly sometimes. I guess it's just how I'm feeling. Sometimes it looks like a blob of paint, sometimes it looks good, but today it didn't turn out too bad. I was kind of focused and in the zone, so I managed to make it work. We're getting super close now, and it's time to finish off this axe, and I have to give Juan Hidalgo credit for this technique, so make sure you check his channel out on how to do this properly. But essentially I just glaze Gryph-Charger Grey to where I want shadow on the axe, and then build this up over many coats. I then glaze silver from the opposite direction to give it some shine, and then I edge highlight with a mix of silver and white. This was a great way to finish off day 3, and I have plenty of time for any touch-ups. And at this point, my dudes, I'm pretty much done, and I'm really happy with how it's looking. Whoa, stop. That was a little bit premature. I kept looking at this miniature and I felt like it was missing something. With the box art sitting right next to me from the whole time I was painting it, I kept admiring those cool little tattoos that he had on him, those kind of fern-like looking blue ones, which are a pretty classic look for Dwarf Slayers, and I could not put them on. So what I decided to do was get back on the paints, pull out the blues, and start painting them up around his arms, on his body, on his knuckles, pretty much everywhere. And now I'm doing this pretty late in the process. This is pretty much on day 4 when it's due, but I just couldn't help myself. But anyway, my dudes, it's pretty much finished now, and here it is. Here is my classic WarhammerQuest Dwarf Slayer for Old and Demon. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end, and good luck to everyone who's entered in the Old and Demon painting competition. And if you didn't enter this year, maybe consider entering next year. It's a whole lot of fun. I also want to say a massive thank you to all my Patreons. Thanks so much for all the support, my dudes. And if you want to join the Anvil of Doom Patreon, hit up the link in the bio. We look forward to seeing you on the Discord. Anyway, my dudes, I'm out of here. I'll see you all next time. Cheers.